Hello, my beautiful sister. I'm welcoming you to this first class of Red Medicine. In this class, I'm going to introduce you with the basic elements of menstruation. So we are going to scratch the surface right now. Some of this information you already know, and it's always nice to remind yourself where you are, who you are, and what do you have inside of your skin. So I'm going to generalize, and then throughout the course, we will dive deep into every part. And the flow of this course is that we will start with the physical element of our cycle, remembering the hormones, remembering the chemicals and glands and organs. And then in the next phase of our course, we will step into more subtle spiritual realm of this beautiful dance that is happening throughout the month. So now let's remember that our cycle is a part of reproductive system. And in order to understand how we function, we need to know the whole big picture of the reproductive system. Always remember that you can pause the video and make notes and create perhaps questions that you can send me anytime, which I will be so happy to answer for you.
The female reproductive system. So here we have vagina or vaginal canal, the body of the uterus. It's a hollow, smooth organ that is literally suspended in the pelvis. The cervix is that bridge that connects the vagina with the body of the uterus. We're going to cover cervix and the cervical canal in a very special way in a separate class. Fallopian tube is the part of the body of the uterus that grows like arms out of the uterus. And then we have independent pair of two endocrine organs, ovaries. The breast or mammary glands are also part of female reproductive system that we're going to study also separately. Now let us refresh what we know about the cycle. Woman's cycle starts with the first day of bleeding. That's the phase 1, when the uterus is shedding the endometrial layer after unsuccessful fertilization of matured egg. Phase 2, where new follicles start growing within the ovary. So that's pre-ovulation days. And it is also accompanied by secreting special mucus, the body of the uterus. During this phase, the egg is growing and getting ready for that climax day of ovulation. The ovulation happened, and in the phase 3, the egg is traveling into the body. And you see how the layer of endometrium became thick again, ready to receive and nurture that dominant egg. And then back to the phase 4, in case the egg was not fertilized by the sperm, it's going to be ready to let go of all the tissues that have been grown in the endometrium, premenstrual days. And then it starts all over again, every month within 10 years of woman's life. And here are some amazing, fascinating facts about menstruation. So a modern woman will have around 450 menstrual cycles in a whole lifetime. In prehistorical times, for example, women had around 50. In agricultural times, women had around 150. So there is a big difference, right? Another fact is that during one menstruation, we lose around 250 milliliters of blood. And in a lifetime, woman would shed from 30 to 70 liters within the whole lifetime. And let me remind you that one human has 5-6 liters of blood in the whole body. So woman, when she is menstruating throughout life, it means that she is releasing blood of 10 people. Can you imagine that? And it seems that you and me and all women cannot stand aside anymore, disregard and ignore this big part of our lives. We are really here to break those walls, that so-called taboo, and understand how can such tremendous biological process become a taboo. And by the way, did you ever think why menstruation is associated with the word taboo? This is also very interesting. The definition of word taboo, according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, means banned on grounds of morality or taste, forbidden to profane use or contact because of what are held to be dangerous, supernatural powers. Now, the word itself is actually coming from Polynesian origin. Captain James Cook brought the word to Western civilization after visiting Polynesian Tonga in 1771. And taboo in Polynesian is tapwa, which means both sacred and menstruation. So the tapwa inherited by James Cook became a taboo. And Polynesian meaning is the prohibition of an action based on belief that such behavior is either too sacred and consecrated or too dangerous and accursed for ordinary individuals to undertake.
And indeed, we see how the whole theme of menstruation around the world, whether today or hundreds years ago, was always this, in a way, dangerous, very secret, at the same time, very curious topic, very sensitive. And today, there are still cultures where they perceive menstruation as a dirty um, process that woman is going through. So she is segregated or separated from the family, and sometimes it is done in a violent way. In this course, I will be sharing with you what stands behind of this separation. Why do we need to be separated? And how this separation in a misunderstood, distorted way became a ridiculous attitude towards women. I can tell you about my own experience that in 2018, I think, or 17, I was living in Lebanon. And at that time, I was participating in my friend's amazing project. She's a film producer, and she was making this documentary, which is called The Day I Became a Woman. So we arranged interview with different kind of people who could shed some light about menstruation and share their perspective. Among them were Ayurvedic doctors, medicine doctors, spiritual teachers, and just scientists and even people from religion. So there was one day when we went to mosque to interview Imam. Imam is the head of the mosque. It's the main priest. Imam was telling that every menstruation of a woman is a combination of very toxic poison fluids which are not safe for people. And also he shared that in his knowledge, there was a certain scientific experiment where they were given this blood to animals and the animals died. So he was advising that woman during menstruation should stay away from temple like mosque or church, from husband, from anything because she is toxic and dirty. And another thing that he mentioned, which is really, really powerful message, that a man who engages with a woman during her menstruation in a sexual way, they might have a risk to give birth to a very negative and very unhealthy child. So he was mentioned like an evil child. Now, maybe as you are listening to this, you might think like this is such a nonsense. Can you realize the sadness of this situation? A religious leader who is influencing his community, who is respected by his community, who is leading his community, and who is actually well known in Lebanon, is sharing and passing such information that women are toxic during their menstruation. And of course, now we understand that most of the negative side of menstruation was passed by people who have ability to be heard by massives of people and media and so on. And we never came back to that imam to tell him that he is wrong, or perhaps he can research more. And there are no such scientific evidence that animals, in case of eating women's menstrual blood, can die. So this information starts being passed from mouth to mouth, from ears to ears. And that's why I feel it is my mission to bring the light and the goodness to the most beautiful period of our life that we are experiencing for so many years. And I believe that you right here sitting in front of me are on this mission as well. So we are together in the same boat. And how do we do it? We don't go to people and force them to change their attitude or their belief. We don't convince them in anything. What we do is we need to become educated about our body and then turn this flow into our beautiful, spiritual, healthy practice. My goal in this course is to share with you all the information from Chinese medicine, from Taoist practice, from yoga philosophy, and from Kabbalah that will allow you to arrive to this understanding of healthy cycle. And at this point, I invite you to start thinking of your cycle that is not just happening between your legs, but it's dancing throughout your body, and it is directly influenced and influencing all other organs and systems. So instead of thinking only of the uterus, vagina, and ovaries, we will include liver, kidneys, brain, and heart, and breathing, and movement, and stillness, and anything that you can relate to your physical body is a part of your menstruation and your ovulation. For example, let me remind you that your cycle does not start in your uterus. It starts in the relationship, in the connection between your brain, uterus, and ovaries. The smallest cycle, the most subtle internal, is happening inside of your ovary. And it's only one part of your cycle. And then uterus itself has her own internal cycle, which is the change in the endometrium layer. These tissues that are woven with blood vessels are constantly changing in size, shape, and condition. There is another exchange that is happening, which is the starting point is in hypothalamus part of your brain. Hypothalamus produces a certain hormone which is transmitted right into your pituitary gland, which is also located in your brain. So these chemicals are messengers that activate that internal body clock. Then pituitary secretes another hormone, which is being directly sent to your ovaries. So you see, this one is a bigger cycle. inside of your body. So now we have 3 types of cycles. The most subtle, the most internal is happening in the ovary. So this is ovarian cycle. And this cycle is almost impossible to feel. The other one is happening inside of the uterus when the uterus is going through changes physically. And that is more able for us to sense. And sometimes we feel it as pulling or discomfort. And also women are able to sense it as a very pleasant sensation. That depends on the condition of her health. Now the third, the biggest cycle that is running throughout the body. So from the brain all the way down to the pelvic floor to meet the ovaries and uterus. Now, what stands between these 2 extremities? So the pelvic floor and the head. There is body, there is torso that is full of these contents that are living, intelligent organs that are constantly functioning in order to supply this process of your cycle. So the health of your cycle does not only depend on your awareness and health of menstruation. It is an integral approach of everything in your body. And that's why I really love this course, because it's not about creating a beautiful menstrual practice. It's about actually turning your whole health into a very vibrant, vital, fertile ground where you experience in life. Now I would like to finish this first class by showing you a very, very pleasant movie. It's a short movie about menstruation that Walt Disney created in 1946. I want to acknowledge this contribution that Walt Disney really did into our lives as we were growing, and I was so pleasantly surprised when I found this movie. It really reveals different sides, views, and perception of that we are having around menstruation. And I will see you in the next class. Thank you.
Why is nature always called Mother Nature? Perhaps it's because, like any mother, she quietly manages so much of our living without our ever realizing there's a woman at work. Why, right from the beginning, we breathe and sleep and wake up with no more conscious planning than we used in sprouting teeth. Mother Nature controls many of our routine bodily processes through automatic control centers called glands. The story of menstruation really begins with one particular gland. It's located here at the base of the brain, and it's called the pituitary gland. In our childhood years, this pituitary gland concentrates on producing growth hormones, busy little messengers which circulate through the bloodstream. They order the various bones and tissues to get growing. And as a girl grows up from blocks to dolls to books, that means her body is obeying the orders issued by the pituitary gland. Of course, these orders vary among different girls. Some girls grow short, some tall, some heavy, and some slight. But there comes a time somewhere between the ages of 11 and 17, though about 13 is average, when the pituitary must turn part of its attention to maturing the body which it has grown. So it starts sending out a new type of hormone, a maturing hormone. And that is when menstruation begins, when these maturing hormones start coming down through the bloodstream to the ovaries. The ovaries themselves are glands about the size of almonds, and locked within each ovary are thousands of eggs. Although these eggs are too small to be seen by the human eye, any one of them has the possibility of someday becoming a human being. Near the ovaries are the fallopian tubes, short canals which lead to the uterus or womb. This hollow pear-shaped organ opens into the vagina, which is part of the birth canal, and is the external opening for this whole group of organs. So, as you see, there is a continuous passage from each ovary through the fallopian tubes, uterus, and vagina to the outside of the body. These organs function in a continuous cycle. The pituitary gland starts the process when it sends its maturing hormones down through the bloodstream to the ovaries. Now one of the ovaries passes on an order of its own to the uterus. It tells the cells which make up the lining of the uterus to multiply and fill themselves with watery fluids and blood. This begins to build up a thickened lining of somewhat velvety material. At the same time, an ovary has been maturing an ovum or egg, which is magnified here so that we can see it. About once a month, one of these tiny eggs passes out of the ovary and finds its way into a fallopian tube, where it moves along toward the uterus. If the egg is impregnated, which happens when a woman is going to have a child, the egg will stay within the uterus. Then the thickened lining will provide nourishment for the budding human being through the early days of its development. However, most eggs pass through the fallopian tubes without being fertilized. When this happens, there's no use for that potential nourishment in the built-up lining of the uterus. And so, in a few days, it passes from the body. This is the flow which we call menstruation. So, as we see now, menstruation is just one routine step in a normal and natural cycle that is going on continuously within the body. The time between periods is usually about 28 days. However, it may be shorter for some girls, longer for others. The flow itself may last anywhere from 3 days to 7. Yet each of these different schedules may be normal. For just as the pituitary gland orders some girls to grow short, some tall, some heavy, and some slight, so its orders about menstruation may differ widely among normal women. The important thing is that you should be fairly regular within yourself. Of course, a girl may be irregular during the first year or so, but after that, when her system is settled down into a routine, her period should always be about the same number of days apart and last about the same length of time. Try not to throw yourself off schedule by getting overtired, emotionally upset, or catching cold. And if your timing goes seriously wrong, or you're bothered with severe cramps or headaches, you should have a talk with your doctor. Of course, you'll want to keep a personal calendar. Mark the first day of each period and check to see that there are about the same number of days between periods. It's not only a useful record of past performance, but it comes in handy when you have to plan ahead. This calendar appears in an interesting booklet called Very Personally Yours. This booklet has been prepared to enlarge upon what you learn from this brief film. Among other things, the booklet explodes that old taboo against bathing during your period. Not only can you bathe, you should bathe. Because during menstruation, your perspiration glands are working overtime. Just be careful to avoid either very hot water or very cold water. In fact, it's not a good idea at any time to shock your system with extremes, any more than to let yourself get chilled or to catch cold. And as for the old taboo against exercise, that's nonsense. Exercise is good for you during menstruation. Just use common sense. When you come to think of it, most of your daily routine is on the mild side. It's going to extremes that's wrong and to be avoided. To most girls, the menstrual period should bring no severe discomfort. Some girls have a little less pep, a feeling of pressure in the lower part of the body, perhaps an occasional twinge or a touch of nerves. But don't let it get you down. After all, no matter how you feel, you have to live with people. You have to live with yourself, too. And once you stop feeling sorry for yourself and take those days in your stride, you'll find it's easier to keep smiling and even-tempered. You can do practically everything you normally do. Oh, come now. We said practically everything, provided you take common-sense care of yourself. Exercises to relieve cramps are illustrated in the booklet. Try them. With the guidance of a qualified person, you may find they help. And do something about that slouch. Slumpy posture is just as bad inside as it looks outside. So stand up straight and let the organs function from the position that nature intended. One way to help them function normally is to avoid constipation. You see, your reproductive organs lie between the rectum and the bladder and their external openings, and constipation will disturb the relationship between these organs. So you'll find it worth your while to drink plenty of water, eat plenty of fruit, and to include cereals and eggs and leafy vegetables in your daily diet. And incidentally, it's smart to keep looking smart. That well-groomed feeling will give you new poise and lift your morale, especially when it's backed up with year-round fresh air and sunshine and plenty of rest and sleep. Because the best possible insurance against trouble on those days is healthy living every day. And that's the story. There's nothing strange nor mysterious about menstruation. All life is built on cycles, and the menstrual cycle is one normal and natural part of nature's eternal plan for passing on the gift of life.